to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Vision radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Say, hold on, we're connecting next. Nancy Newell. The other one in.
All right, folks. My name is Jerome. I am the sane environmentalist. Excuse the technical difficulties. We're trying to work with Skype here to get things working. But it looks like Skype does not want to allow us to connect two calls at the same time.
It will. Hold on. It will. Hold on. We just have to call her phone number. Hold on. You have to talk, Jerome.
All right.
Tell them who we're
so
trying
at any
to
rate,
reach.
we are collecting ourselves.
No, you're not.
This is. I'm becoming extremely
Here,
frustrated.
I'll jump in and.
So at any rate, folks, thank you for your patience. We are working on this. We're Got it. That took 5 full minutes. I really should have started that at an earlier time.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize for the inconvenience as well. So, again, my name is Jerome. I am the sane environmentalist. I am going to be on today with Ms. Nancy Newell. And what organization are you with, Nancy?
Well, actually, I am an advisor, volunteer advisor to several organizations, but primarily with the anti-nuclear groups. One of them is Beyond Nuclear, and Fair Winds Associates I work together with. That's Arnie Gunderson.
He's my hero.
Hello? Are you there?
Hello. Yeah.
First one in the world to report that those were 3 meltdowns at Fukushima. And I've known him for 40 years, ever since Pennsylvania 3 Mile Island.
Okay. So good. So you're an activist, and we're activists together in this. So at any rate, your biggest concern and the reason you wanted to come on today was to talk about the Columbia Generating Station, correct?
Yes, and I don't know if you realize what its original name was, which is totally appropriate, and that's why they changed the name to Columbia Generating Station. It used to be called, they were going to build 5 of them in the Northwest under the WPPS system, and this was whoops, number 2. That's actually what they called it. So the whole program proved to be a major whoops, too late, of all the money that was wasted and all the radioactivity that's been spread around the world.
Yes, and the Columbia Generating Station is directly adjacent to Hanford as well, which is a really bad thing. So how much has been released radiation-wise? It's documentable. And where did it go from the Columbia Generating Station?
Well, it goes in several ways. It goes into the river every day that it operates. There are pipes that go actually where our juvenile salmon love to hang out because it's some of the coldest water, and that's why they have it located there. The nuclear plant, it needs cooling, and that's an ideal temperature to cool the rods. And the juvenile salmon population, of course, is almost ended, which is an animal which is older than dinosaurs, apparently. And we are saying that the dams on the river, there's so many dams that produce electricity from the Columbia River here, is what's causing it. Well, that's not truly the case. And they don't talk about even low-level radiation, which has been proven time and again how very dangerous it is for every living thing. Indeed, it is.
Yeah, and it builds up. It's cumulative radiation damage on DNA and on our body. It's really a sad situation.
Yes.
So, what are the main design and engineering problems that you can see with the Columbia Generating Station that make it so dangerous right now?
Well, the Westinghouse designs, General Electric Westinghouse, are the worst, and probably the worst in the world, I would say. But that's my own opinion. But the pipes, because of the heat that carry the water, the radioactive water, they wear out, and then the plant shouldn't be operating, but they take the risk of continuing to operate. And Arnie Gunderson of Fair Winds told me during Fukushima that they don't even know in the Columbia Generating Station what parts are not functioning properly because they'd have to take the whole plant down, and it would cost so much money they'd have to close it. And they don't want to close it. And they should close it. They're actually required to close it.
Yeah, that seems to me like probably that's a good idea to close that plant down. I'm on their website, on Energy Northwest website right now. And they say that it's the 3rd largest electricity generator in Washington behind the Grand Coulee and Chief Joseph Dams. It's the only commercial reactor facility in the region. and all of its output is provided to the Bonneville Power Administration at the cost of production. So
yes,
they say
left
that
out a few things.
They say that it's not dependent on that it has refueling every other year. Well, that's too bad, isn't it? Every time they open the lid on that reactor, it emits a giant amount of radiation.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely true.
Yeah, so basically what we're looking at here is a General Electric Mark II. Is it a boiling water or a pressurized water reactor? Do you know that?
Boiling water.
Okay, so it's a GE Mark II design, so it's similar to the Fukushimas, but without the Taurus.
Without the what?
The Taurus, the big donut at the bottom of the containment.
Yeah.
So does it have
I
a
believe
Taurus?
so. I'm not sure. I'm not really familiar of that particular segment of the plant.
But yeah, those are very dangerous reactors. If it is a boiling water reactor, because it basically uses a radioactive steam to run the turbines, and any steam release is going to be radioactive.
Well, and consider also that if that goes, it potentially could destroy the Grand Coulee Dam, which provides 40% of U.S. hydroelectric power. That the nuclear plant only provides 3.7% of Northwest electric power at this stage. It is so expensive. There were at least 25 members at the recent Bonneville meeting about Focus 2028, because Bonneville is borrowing from the government in order to keep that thing operating, and it cost $250 million the last round. I think I noted that down accurately at that recent meeting. And the public power entities, 28 of them, get electricity through it, are challenging the Bonneville power people at that meeting. Why are we paying these high costs when California is advancing rapidly, so rapidly from all the way from San Diego up to our border and over to the Wyoming border, that they are almost completely off all dirty electric producing operations, including natural gas. And they've closed several nuclear plants. I know the fellow that closed one before we closed Trojan, and I've known him personally for years, and he's an expert, Ed Sneloff, international expert, and helped several countries as well as the U.S. get off these plants that aren't needed. Yeah,
and I know that I read somewhere that they're actually using the Columbia Generating Station to irradiate fuel for plutonium production, for weapons production. Did you know that?
It automatically does that, yeah.
No, I mean, but they are specifically, there's a difference. Any quote-unquote spent fuel has plutonium in it, okay? But these bundles are specifically designed for the weapons industry. So they're specifically breeding plutonium for the weapons industry there. I always hate to hear that, because now it becomes a matter of national security. It's not about money anymore. It's about national security. So that I found to be very disturbing. You know, that still on the Hanford site, they're breeding plutonium for bombs. It's just so silly.
Well, and the workers, you know, that oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the workers, that recent collapse, the horrible conditions at Hanford.
Yes.
That was, I think, about 8 miles from the operating nuclear plant. That this release of radiation, the explosion, the workers' contamination. Now the Oregon State Labor Council is helping the workers try to get coverage, and it was denied coverage for some of the health coverage for that accident, and calling it a pre-existing condition, their cancers. So the workers are very interested, I believe, in closing the nuclear plant, so that all these other things don't continue to happen, because Hanford is obviously such a horrible radioactive mess, and the radiation was off the charts in our water, still is. Radiation doesn't go away for centuries. So
not for a long time.
Right. It was probably one of the stupidest things we ever did.
Yeah, I've been actually focusing quite a bit on Hanford in the last week, and I've discovered several very disturbing things. Like a lot of their tanks are leaking. The single shell tanks are leaking and losing. They don't really know. They can't really tell how much of this liquid sludge into the groundwater, and they say, yeah, it has made it to the Columbia. So how bad is the Columbia now? Do you have any idea?
Oh.
In a real way, in a scientific way?
Yeah, and they test, like the salmon, etc. It is, well, I mean, it just speaks for itself. They've died. I mean, we really have a very low salmon population now. And
well, this last year, 4 out of 10 spawning Chinook salmon did not return from the ocean. 40% of them.
Yeah, the
and
whales.
Every year, the numbers are similar.
Yeah, yeah. And the whales in Puget Sound lose their migratory brain capabilities with the Navy's discharges of awful weapons that probably have radiation.
God.
In Puget Sound, yeah. So you've got a triple whammy in the whole Washington area. And then the French, who's going bankrupt with all their nuclear plants, a company called NuScale comes here, convince our governor, Kisshaber, that it's a good idea in Corvallis to research small modular reactors connected together, but they don't say that, and they don't say how many they need to make them effective underground, affecting our drinking water, and start a project and spend money on research at Corvallis. And then they tried in Oregon State, in the legislature, in a committee, to get, hundreds of millions of dollars for this project to go forward with small, like refrigerator size almost, connected together, and 40 of them possibly to make a project work, and wanted a huge amount of money when Oregon is struggling with the budget as it is. So we went down there with several people in several groups, and we testified, and the chair of the group cut off my mic before I could speak. And
really?
The chair and the representative from Hood River left the meeting. And this was a full meeting. This was a packed meeting at the state legislature. So the rest of the people that stayed, there were about 6 or 7 that stayed on that committee, and those 2 left. And I proceeded without the mic, and they decided, when the chair returned, to refuse any money further for the project in Corvallis. And then, just recently, the industry had the gall to come into the state of Washington with all the problems with nuclear there and the sick workers, and, it's just endless, and asked for $1 billion for these small modular reactors, is the latest scam. And that's NuScale, again, $1 billion from a committee. And this was just a few weeks ago that this took place. And we have a representative up in the state of Washington who worked on Hanford for years. Jerry is his first name, and I'm forgetting his last name, but he has been so instructive to the public and so effective in the legislature that was killed off in committee.
Thank God.
We do have excellent activists throughout the Northwest that sacrifice
I'm one
their
of
own
them.
time.
That's
right.
And so I spend at least a couple hours a week just on the radio alone, not counting YouTube videos and other things. So, this is a really sad situation with the whole Hanford thing, with the tanks leaking, with the botched demolition of the plutonium finishing plant out there, which is now sitting basically exposed to the elements, half torn down, with a whole bunch of blue foam all over it. Not looking safe at all. I watched videos of them when they were tearing down, demolishing the outer shell of that building, and the dust was just flying. The whole zone there needs to be kind of scooped up to about 100 feet deep and put somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah. There are 9,000 people that are employed there. And
right
they
now?
Are
at Hanford?
Yeah, through the whole complex of it, yeah. That's what the report I got says. It's called Why the Scariest Nuclear Threat May Be Coming from Inside the White House in Vanity Fair, July of 2017. Excellent article on the Department of Energy and how it's still overtaken by these nutcases, I call them nutcases, continuing to promote any kind of nuclear weapons or nuclear power. So, yeah, we're still having to remain very active. I'm sure you know that, Jerome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm 70 years old. I'm hoping I can stay on the planet after being exposed to the radiation from 3 Mile Island and all the advances that they're discovering on how to see in your blood what's going on. But we have strong spirits. They're not going to bury us easy.
Yeah, me either. You know, oftentimes, Nancy, I do get frustrated, you know.
Oh,
And it seems like a lot of times certain things just don't, and you've pointed this out, certain things don't work like technologically. Like the issue we had with Skype this morning, where it should have just worked, but it wouldn't. You know?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, Skype will just quietly drop the call. And I've done a half a radio show, and I've gotten a text message that said, "Hey, it's dead air. What's going on?" And then realize that for 20 minutes I've been talking into a microphone, thinking I'm on the radio, but Skype killed the call. Yeah. So it seems like there's a conspiracy against the people trying to expose the conspiracy.
Yes, absolutely. I concur with that. Absolutely. Yeah, there are times when I can't even email out. It won't send it out. You know that Bill Gates is pro-nuclear, from what I've been reading and told. And I know that they can interfere with our activities. So I don't get paranoid about it. You know, I mean, it's just I'll keep going at it. They're not going to stop us. There's so many of us. But one fellow decided he was going to stop it. Did you hear about this story out of Pacific Gas and Electric's Metcalf substation in California?
No.
A sniper. He used a .30 caliber rifle, took out 17 transformers, and it knocked out cables, communications, substation communications. I mean, imagine that happening at Hanford. Imagine the situation we'd be in. And this is just one crazy sniper. I mean, what does it take, the risk, when we don't have to do it? There's so much capacity in California now. They can send it through the Bonneville grid that Franklin D. Roosevelt built so farmers could have some kind of economy. And they could easily send it up to us, but it's not happening. And I'm trying to figure out what are the political barriers that stop this. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But
well, they have to keep the plant viable because they're using it to produce plutonium.
Well, they got an overload of plutonium. They got an overload of nuclear weapons. And for anybody representing the United States, especially Trump and his crowd, to represent that they're trying to reduce, especially with Trump in office, he's not. He loves them. So, you know, I mean, it's ludicrous. It's insanity. And this insanity has to be corrected, period.
That's why I call myself the sane environmentalist, because what I am fighting against is utterly insane. It really is. On so many different levels, you know, I look at not just from the nuclear level. You know, yesterday in Eugene, Oregon was a beautiful sunny day. It was actually clear. The skies didn't have any clouds in them until the airplanes started going back and forth. And then all of a sudden, about after an hour, we had a hazy day. We didn't have a bright, crisp, sunny day anymore. Now we have a hazy day. About 10% of that solar radiation was cut by these big plumes of cloud that they created. You know,
not to mention all the oil they're using, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think that humanity is dead set and bound and determined to destroy the environment before we're able to get beyond our present level. I feel like we're children with something we have no comprehension of, generally speaking, and we are going forward in a willy-nilly way, being as destructive as we want, not considering the consequences. And at some point in time, Nancy, there will be consequences, and they will be severe, and there are many tipping points on the horizon, many of them.
Oh, sure.
It took an hour at Fukushima. In Unit 2, it only took 40 minutes from the time the water hit top of fuel to the time that there was a full core melt. 40 minutes.
Yep.
That's all it takes.
Yep.
No water for 40 minutes. You got a pile of corium now.
Yeah.
And a big mess. And if this plant goes, you're not going to be able to get to Hanford, are you?
Yes.
I mean, they talk about a 20-mile exclusion zone.
Yep.
I think, let's see, economic, spent fuel, surrounding population. Defines 2 emergency planning zones, 10 miles, 16 kilometers, and then 50 miles for ingestion. So basically, Hanford would be off limits for human consumption. And if that happens, don't people have to keep an eye on those tanks and stuff and keep them circulating? And aren't there processes still going on out there that if you just walk away from them, they'll have minimum big fires?
Yeah. Yep. And Russia, you know about Russia, they did a 200-mile radius of no human habitation. They cleared out that massive a radius from Chernobyl. 3 Mile Island, nothing has been done.
No.
Nothing.
And I think the core is still sitting in there half melted. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I don't know how they could humanly get it out of there.
Yeah. And if we haven't had enough lessons about nuclear power with the tragedy in Japan, horrific tragedy for the world, what will take us to get to the point we're supposed to be, and we are getting there very, 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 very fast. Now we're down to 6 cents a kilowatt hour for wind power and solar, and other things that are coming in very quickly, very sophisticated batteries. San Diego is in terrific shape. They want to wheel up to us all that exceptional clean electricity, and the powers that be are holding it back from Bonneville. In Elliott, Maine, the Bonneville administrator is out of Enron. Well, everybody knows what Enron was about. And it was about control of power. And this is a true story. I helped expose Enron and take down that corporation and tell the truth about it. And people had no idea here. They honored Ken Lay a year and a half that he was here as the most ethical CEO of any corporation in the United States. And there were 500 people attending from every walk of life, and we were inside spoofing the whole breakfast with all the crooks in Enron. Well, that proved out to be a really tremendous exercise. But that's part of the problem, too, is this attitude that should change. I mean, why haven't we got that electricity here? There's more jobs created, proven time and again. The economy is a lot happier and a lot cleaner and a lot saner going to those other sources. And why isn't it happening? We had Governor Barbara Roberts, a pioneer, her aide of the Department of Energy in the state of Oregon. We have one. Washington State does not. And we took action, and we got it done with Trojan. And luckily, the chairman of PGE understood how extremely dangerous it was. He's retired now, Ken Harrison. And he knew the pipes were bad. He knew the risks, and he
What do you mean by
the
pipes
closure
are bad?
process.
Steam? You mean the steam generator tubes?
Where the radiated water goes through to cool. You know, it goes in and it comes out radiated. Those pipes from the heat were very damaged, and they got that report to the chair, and he started the process, and then the governor started the public process for, I think it was like 30 organizations to sit in. I was part of that, and make that decision so that the company wouldn't completely go bankrupt, Portland General Electric. It was a very balanced decision, and I felt it was fair to help with some of the finances in order to stop this thing before we had no finances or no ability to solve the situation of a meltdown at Trojan. So
Right.
that was a very effective public process. And that's why I can't understand today for Steve Irvin, who then got a job for the national D.C. job for energy efficiency. She's so brilliant. She was the head of the state DOE during the Trojan decision. And she's now back here on 6 boards, and she's not involved in the closure of CGS. I mean, I can't understand that at all. It doesn't make any sense.
Not
As far
at
as I
all.
know, I talked to her, and she said, "Oh, no, I'm too busy with my 6 boards." But, well, it's great. She's certainly bringing in all the answers that will easily make it a closure. But talk about it publicly, how dangerous it is. Why not? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they don't want to quote-unquote scare people.
Oh, you know, if they think people aren't scared today, they're really not checking in with people.
Yeah,
People don't talk
aren't
that
scared
much about
of
it.
nuclear because it's invisible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the fact we're vulnerable. I mean, with a guy like Trump threatening everybody in the world as if we're not vulnerable, and he knows the Northwest is vulnerable. He doesn't like the Northwest because we didn't vote for him. So, you know, I guess it would be very convenient for them to just dump us into the ocean right now. We have a major earthquake fault under that nuclear plant that is active. What the heck are we doing?
I was just reading that.
Yeah.
I was literally just reading that. The Nuclear
they've known that
Regulatory Commission's estimate of the risk each year of an earthquake intense enough to cause core damage was 1 in 147,619, according to the NRC in a study in 2010. They're planning a new earthquake assessment that will update the last comprehensive one done in 96. The U.S. Geological Survey has shown that the active faults of the Puget Sound region are connected to ridges in the mid-Columbia by faults that cross the Cascades.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, we do have potential.
Yeah.
1 in 176,000.
Yeah.
You know,
the Tri-City. Oh, go ahead.
I was thinking this morning about that, how they do that. 1 in so many thousand chance that every day this plant will blow up. And if you think about it like somebody playing the lottery, how we've got 100 plants in the U.S., and every day each one has a 1 in 176,000 chance. So if you do the math, you will see that you could have a really bad day if you had the wrong kind of event occur.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, if you had a huge crust shift on the West Coast and the plates shifted 10, 20, or 30 feet, and San Onofre was underwater, and Hanford melted down because the Columbia has no on-site power and can't, et cetera, and all of a sudden, boom, you got 2 or 3 in the whole western United States is now contaminated.
Yeah.
More
in December,
contaminated, I should say.
Yes. And do you know that in December of 2016, they barely missed, according to the Union of Concerned Scientists, they were just lucky that the last transformer held at the Columbia Generating Station in freezing conditions. Otherwise, we would have had the scenario you're describing.
So that sniper guy was taking out transformers at the Columbia Generating Station.
No, what was going to take out the transformers was the cold. Everything was freezing up in December of 2016. So we barely missed the meltdown. The sniper was in California recently, just shooting up substations. He knew the system well enough.
Okay.
So you're going to tell me when Russia is talking about bombing, it's the information I'm getting, bombing Hanford, bye-bye.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would be the world's biggest dirty bomb right there.
Yeah.
You know, If you just set off
that's why the
50 kiloton nuke right in the middle of those tank farms, it would be over with. That might destroy life on Earth. I mean, there's enough poison out there to destroy life on Earth several times over.
Yeah.
In a very concentrated area.
Yeah, and why won't Senator Wyden or Merkley talk about closing that plant? Do you hear them talk about it? I don't.
Nope.
I've requested it many times. I've gone to Bonneville and nearly got arrested at the headquarters for going to a public meeting, and that they wouldn't let me in. So this was about 2 years ago. The recent one I went to, it was a joke. The way they talked about the most concernful thing for all these small public utilities was the cost, which is good. I mean, they're paying attention to $250 million additional debt in Bonneville that they're going to borrow from the broken U.S. Treasury because Trump is in office. So there's a real quiet uproar going on from all the public utilities that depend on Bonneville, and they want answers, and they're not getting them. It's called Focus 2028, the whole process that Bonneville has to go through to prove that they're even worthwhile at this stage, especially with this old nuclear plant still being allowed to operate.
And they're trying to renew the license of that plant, too, aren't they? To the 2040s?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how long has this thing been running? Since let's see, when did it open? Country, I'm looking for the construction began in 1972, commissioned 1984. So it's been running since 84.
Yeah.
That's 30 years. 30 some odd years.
Which one are you talking about, CGS?
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually 44 years old.
That's
been up and
when
down
they
24
started
times.
Construction. But it says on Wikipedia that it started actually operating in 1984. Construction began in 1972.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, at a cost of $7 billion.
Yeah, if it even operated 5 minutes, it'd be dangerous.
Yes. Agreed.
But I don't understand how Oregon doesn't really holler about this after we close Trojan. We have such a wonderful legacy. The Wilsons of Solaflex were tremendous help in closing that plant because they ran that campaign with their initiative to close it. And even though that failed, it only took a few more months, and the decision was made to close it because the public got educated. That was a tremendous contribution by Solaflex and Jerry and Marilyn Wilson, and that will never be forgotten. So there are people that will put a lot of money and a lot of time because they know how serious this is and what future our children will have. I mean, are we supposed to live on space stations like several East Coast New Yorkers have their own space stations? This is a true story to live on because they're now saying, well, we won't be able to live on Earth. We'll just live on a space station. Who wants to live like that? Not me.
Not me either.
Yeah?
Me either.
The thinking. How bizarre. We're living in such, the Dr. Strangelove movie was one of the biggest movers and shakers on the idiocy of nuclear weapons. Did you ever see it?
Dr. Strangelove? No, I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, don't miss it. It's going around again. But the ending of it was that this famous cowboy was in the movie, and he wrote the atom bomb going down swinging his cowboy hat. He was so excited to be on the nuclear bomb to tear up the world. And then they did
I did see that movie because I remember that scene.
Okay. Slim Pickens.
I remember that scene. I was a kid, though, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him going, yoo-hoo, yaha, yaha.
It makes an impression, doesn't it?
writing the big bomb down.
Yeah, they just started running that again here in Portland, that movie. Yep.
Fascinating. I saw a video on YouTube recently, or a movie with Lonnie, and I forget what it was called, but there was a section in it where they did an interview with a lady who was a little girl, and lived in Nagasaki at the time of the bombing, and was even in a shelter. Was like kind of a privileged child, and so had a shelter to go to. But they still saw the flash, and if you see the flash, that means you get all the X-rays and gamma and the neutrons. So she says that they had a real hard time because they were so hideous. Nobody wanted to be around them. The skin was sloughing off their faces and their arms and their hands, and she described even what a small nuclear weapon does, and the after effects of that. We have no idea. I think that if people could actually physically see the damage that a nuclear weapon causes, and see the effects on people of radiation, a high-level radiation, I think that maybe they might wake up a little bit and go, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this?
Yes. Yeah. Did you know that Pope Francis, at his ecclesiastical statement had to be made? I believe it was in 2016. Can I read it? It's very short.
Yeah, please.
In the face of possible risks to the environment which may affect the common good now and in the future, decisions must be made based on a comparison of the risks and benefits foreseen for the various possible alternatives. Some projects can profoundly affect the quality of life of an area due to very different factors, or have the effects of nuclear energy use, whether it be weapons. I'm putting this part in, whether it be weapons or nuclear power plants. So he demanded that nuclear power plants be closed, as well as stopping production of nuclear weapons or use, threatened use.
Yeah, we need to decommission it all. Actually, we need to start by finding a place to put all of this stuff, and then we need to decommission it all and put it in that place. But I mean, it literally needs to be. There's no safe way on this planet. There's too much evolution and geology going on. There's no way that you can safely store something for 250,000 years, which is about what it takes for plutonium to degrade away. But of course, it's still radioactive after that. That's what people don't understand.
Right.
Just because
and for how long they don't understand.
It degrades into the next thing, and then you know what? Add another zero. Add another E. Instead of E5, it's E6 now. 6 zeros. After 10 to the 261 E5, or now it's E6, and so it's just exponentially longer. It is less radioactive, but it is still alpha. And alpha radiation is, to the human body, the most damaging radiation. If you get alpha something in you that has an alpha output, an alpha particle will interact with and or cause damage to 1 in every 10 atoms it passes through. Gamma, beta, both interact with every 3,000th atom that they pass through. So alpha radiation is by order of magnitude more dangerous, even though you can stop it with a piece of paper. And I think people are not alarmed by it so much because you can just put up a piece of paper and that'll stop alpha. See, alpha's harmless. And so that basically translates to, well, alpha is harmless. Beta's a little bit dangerous, but gamma, that's really dangerous. So all of a sudden people are thinking that gamma and neutron radiation are the bad ones, and beta and alpha are like, not that big of a deal. It's all lies.
Yeah. And those 24 scrams that was done at the plant because they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And finally, they had to shut it down for several months. I mean, that thing is so over budget, it's unbelievable. But the people have moved into Kennewick from all over the United States. That's part of the Tri-Cities. That's right near that plant and near all the waste problems. And that city's population is doubling and tripling as we speak because people are so desperate for jobs, and those are good jobs in that area still, because of all the problems with the waste, etc. But why don't people think about their own children? I don't understand it. don't think about themselves. You know, I mean, I don't understand it. I guess the desperation for humans, and I can understand that. Not having work, not knowing what the future holds, I can understand that. But I don't understand the complete denial. One woman runs a midwife clinic, and she won't tell the truth about the effects of radiation and all these babies that are birthing and the parents that are birthing there. How do you like that?
Really?
I mean, she got hysterical with me when I just briefly started mentioning it, because I found out about, and it's a natural birth kind of center where you don't go to a hospital, you know, do it at home or where you want to do it. So it struck me so strangely, being a mother, that the split personality almost of denial, no matter what role they play in the community. And I'm not faulting them, because I know it's hard to be human in certain situations, but I do fault them for not telling the truth about the whole reality of it, because that's a requirement as a caretaker, especially for babies. So
absolutely,
that was shocking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and it's true that the whole medical thing is basically taken over by the nuclear industry. Yeah. I think that the American Medical Association and the American Nuclear Association are very closely interacting and linked. You know, I think it's like, well, okay, we got this radiation now, it's giving everybody cancer. Well, guess what? You can cure, quote unquote, that cancer with more radiation. Really? Oh, so now all of a sudden we have cancer. But you can't tell where it really comes from. So we'll just tell them it's from smoking and diet and lack of exercise. And then we can have another reason to continue to have the radiation, because you've got to have it now because it cures cancer.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? How they create the problem, and then the solution makes the problem something that you have to have all of a sudden. Well, we have to. Everybody has to have cars. You know, we have to emit these huge amounts of global warming gases. No, it's just we don't have the collective will to make different changes and choices in our usage of energy and our usage of the environment and the scant resources really that we have.
Yeah. Well, here's something that concerns me too, is that the 4 governors easily of the Northwest, it's what's considered the Northwest, the connection with the Bonneville grid, could easily say to this administrator, you're the wrong person for the job. I mean, he came from Enron. That should have told them something immediately. Enron killed senior citizens during a heat wave and cut off electricity when they owned PGE. And not many people know that.
Enron's evil. They've been evil for years. What were they responsible for back in the day? Big oil spill?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Exxon
I mean, Enron was responsible. Yeah, killed people in India. I knew this, and that's why I was so successful at working with Winona Howder at Food and Water Watch to finally take down Enron. And we fly at that breakfast at the Hilton that honored Ken Lay, the CEO, and he was murdered, truly murdered, in Texas not too long after all that, and we got rid of him. But nobody would believe me. And I just stood out there, and we kept at it, and Larry Tuttle, I don't know if you know his name, Center for Environmental Equity was his group, and Larry and his son wrote up this fantastic breakfast menu with all these crooks from Enron coming in, and everybody honoring them, including Ken Lay. And then Ken Lay had a so-called heart attack right before he testified on how the Iraq War was set up. So the circle of why is this happening in nuclear in our states? Why is no one talking about it that much or revealing it publicly when it's such a huge public health issue? That alone it just boggles my mind.
Yes.
Because the responsibility is not out there. The responsibility is in every one of us to do something about it. And it should get done very quickly. So I'm hoping the public power entities, which really were fighting us on even bringing up anything about the nuclear plant, and one issue I worked on in Eastern Oregon, in Coos Bay, the loggers put on the headline, the local headline to 60,000 loggers off the coast, that I was a communist. because I had talked about the Basque community and how they have economically gotten off a nuclear power plant. And we don't need gas plants. We don't need any of that. We can solve it, especially with California just knocking at the door. Let us in. Let that electricity in. Where's the problem? Where's the mystery?
So California is burning oil and coal to get their electricity, right? Or do they have a big solar and wind output now?
Well, I think I told you at the beginning of the show that their electric capacity is primarily alternatives such as energy efficiency, solar, wind, the sophistication of batteries now. If you get Ed Smeloff on a program, you will have such a history because he was one of the first to close a nuclear power plant in Sacramento, California with SMUD, the Public Utility District, and he's now working, helping a city further south go solar, quite a bit further south in California. But they have excess capacity, and it can't be denied. That's an actual fact. They're just not reporting it to the public that we could use here. They're doing so well. And you may want to get him on the program because he knows so much. And Robert McCullough, who just put the report around with Physicians for Social Responsibility, that we would save $250 million a year, easily put into all the alternatives that work, easily employs people, easily gives health benefits, doesn't deny them, easily prevents cancer. What the heck is going on? Why aren't we immediately working quickly to do that? So,
yeah, it seems that maybe we aren't in charge, you and I, even though we are in charge legally. We have a moral responsibility as citizens of the world to ensure for future generations that there will be a world for them.
Yeah.
So.
And all this, yeah. Yeah, when I reported the woman that left that chair that I mentioned earlier, walked out of the room with the Hood River representative, well, I reported it to the Ethics Committee, and she was removed from the committee. About 4 weeks later. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That was totally unethical what she did. And as her role as a legislator, that's how they reprimanded her, and I don't think she had much more influence within the legislature since then. But I thought I was going to be, you never know what may happen. And I did get threatened with my life during the Trojan thing when I did a cable show, and I was walking out, and they asked me, do you want one more question? I said, sure. So I answered the phone, and a worker from the Trojan plant, it could have been a manager, it could have been, another worker, but wouldn't reveal their name, and he said he's going to kill me. And I told him, well, you're going to kill me anyway with radiation pretty soon, so you're not really threatening me. And then he never called again, or never bothered me. So that worked, but it's not an easy job.
No, it isn't.
You and I don't have an easy job, really, in many senses, but that's what we have to do. Yeah. Go ahead.
And now we got new scale power.
Yes.
Very scary.
We turned them back, but they always get to come back. I mean, that's at least in our lifetime. I don't foresee them being completely thrown out of the country. The new scale aspect of it is just ludicrous. We would import anything like that. We've got all the answers. I'm asking for a public meeting to put the BPA administrator on the spot. The county could do it. Multnomah County 5 women commissioners could easily do it in Portland. So could City Council. The mayor is out of, he's got some questionable backgrounds with his connections with Chase Bank. But they could do it. The council members there, and there are now 2 women on the commission. So I'm calling for a public hearing to question the BPA administrator to answer why he's not closing that plant. He's required to by price. And Robert McCullough, the terrific research guy who left PGE and helped us close Trojan and he's helping all over the world now, and he's still local here. And let's get some truth out. Why are we waiting? And get something done. Yeah. Agreed,
because the whole idea of small modular nuclear power reactors is just horrifying.
Yeah, they're called SMRs.
SMR. Imagine if this were to be an acceptable thing and there was 20,000 of them all over the country within 2 decades. They can't build them fast enough. Every municipality, every place up in the northern climes where there's not good sun and not good oil is going to want one, because they're less expensive. Once you get them bought, the fuel lasts almost forever, and but each one of them is creating irradiated fuel bundles. Each one of them is a potential for a meltdown. Each one of them, again, has that 1 in 142,000 that it will melt today.
Yeah.
Roll the dice. 99.99% time it's going to be fine, but it only takes once. I think that's the thing with the nuclear reactor, that people are having a hard time getting it through their heads, that it only takes one accident, and then it's done.
One thing I quickly want to get in here is it took a woman leader in Germany to give a world the message. They started immediately. They closed 3 nuclear plants right after Fukushima. She said, "No baloney here." And she didn't use the word baloney, but she said she did what she said she was going to do, and she's continuing. So Germany is now the world leader. The economy is one of the healthiest in the world, and they have the same climate as Oregon. There's no excuse for us not to have the same situation, get rid of this plant. That's absolutely ludicrous that the leadership doesn't get it done.
Yeah.
So I call them all on the floor now. All of them. Get it
Well,
done.
they are not,
yeah.
Nancy, we are not their bosses, okay? There's an oligarchy. There is an oligarchy.
I disagree.
And they are in charge.
I disagree.
You don't think that there is an oligarchy? Or you don't think
the bosses. We elect. We vote. We spend money, our own money. It's just that people don't take their power back. It's ridiculous, their ability to do that. It's ridiculous. I mean,
so
if you look at
right.
it...
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yes.
We've become kowtowed, basically beaten down. Nobody wants to be a rebel. Nobody wants to make a fuss, so to speak.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Yeah, I went to the Northwest Energy Coalition formed to try to solve some of these problems, that were so related to everybody throughout the Northwest. And I stood up and I brought up multinational corporations are going to be the biggest headache. This was about 15, 20 years ago at one of their meetings, and only one person came to the mic and acknowledged that would be a fact. Of all those people throughout all the different groups. And Casey Golden, who helped close Trojan, this is even worse. He endorses nuclear power now.
Jesus.
He helped close Trojan. I am not kidding you. As climate solutions, part of climate solutions. Now, this is so bogus, it's unbelievable. But anyway.
So, Nancy, we're down to about 30 seconds here. I want to thank you again for coming on the show. And how can people connect with you? Do you have Facebook? Too late. Thank you.
Okay. OTEC2 at hotmail.com.